PC Ian Broadhurst of West Yorkshire Police was 34 years old when he was shot dead on the 26th of December 2003. Traffic Officer Broadhurst and his colleague PC Neil Roper spotted a suspiciously parked BMW at a junction in Leeds. Checks revealed its plates were false, so they went to speak with the man sat behind the wheel. 37-year-old American David Bieber gave them a false name and was cold under questioning. Roper and Broadhurst got him in the back of their patrol car for further questioning without searching or cuffing him, and feeling uneasy, requested backup. PC James Banks arrived to support them. When Roper moved to handcuff the suspect, without warning, Bieber pulled a gun from his jacket and fired on the officers. PC Roper was struck twice, once in the shoulder and once in the stomach. PC Banks got lucky and escaped injury as the bullet ricocheted off his radio. PC Broadhurst was immobilised after being shot once in the back. Bieber walked over to where he lay on the ground, pleading for his life, and coldly executed Broadhurst with a bullet to the head at point-blank range. The suspect then calmly fled the scene, stealing a car at gunpoint down the road. Fingerprint checks on the stolen BMW left at the scene and public appeals for information provided police with Bieber's alias, Nathan Coleman, which was an identity he'd stolen from a child who died in 1975 and assumed before escaping the United States in 1996, and an address. 2 days after the shooting, police raided Bieber's flat in Leeds. Of course he wasn't there. They also broke into a storage facility he was using, where they found a high-capacity bullet-making machine. CCTV showed that he'd been there since the shooting to stock up. 4 days after the murder, the FBI matched fingerprints taken from the scene to Bieber under his true identity. A Florida bodybuilder and drug dealer, he'd also been a Marine, but was discharged after going AWOL. He fled the country after becoming wanted for suspected involvement in 2 murders. He checked into a hotel in Gateshead in the early hours of December 31st, where he was recognised by a member of staff. Armed officers were deployed to make the arrest. The loaded murder weapon was found under his mattress, along with 300 rounds of ammo. He'd dyed his hair red in an attempt to disguise himself, and also wore thick glasses, again as part of the disguise. At the trial, his defence was that the perpetrator was his friend, who looked like him, who was also from Florida, and had asked him to take care of the gun. But he couldn't reveal his name for fear of repercussions. However, Bieber was convicted of 1 count of murder and 2 attempted. The judge stated that he'd shown, quote, no remorse or understanding of the brutality of his crime, end quote. And the aggravating feature in the case was that he didn't need to shoot Broadhurst in the head. Again, quoting the judge here, you had already disabled him and he was defenceless. You could have escaped then, but you chose to wait and fire a second shot point blank. To shoot and kill an officer in such circumstances, who was doing no more than trying to serve us all, is an attack on all of us. It must be acknowledged that he might have died as a result of the first shot, but you made certain of his death. Bieber was given 3 life sentences with the recommendation that he never be released. If he is ever released, he faces extradition to the US to face charges there. In 2006, a bid to have his conviction overturned was rejected by the Court of Appeal, but he was granted permission to appeal against the judge's recommendation that he shouldn't be released. In 2007, his sentence appeal was delayed while the European Court of Human Rights figured out if lifelong imprisonment is a violation of human rights. Later that year, he was involved in an escape plot with 2 other prisoners, but their attempt was foiled. In 2008, Bieber was told by the High Court he would not have to serve the recommended whole life term, but still needed to do a minimum of 37 years before being considered for parole. So he'd be in prison until at least 2041. In 2012, with a 4-3 majority, the European Court of Human Rights ruled there was no violation. And yet, Bieber's appeal succeeded on the basis that the sentence amounted to inhumane treatment. The chairman of the Police Federation was less than impressed. In a letter to the most senior judge in England, he said, "Granting an evil, calculating killer any kind of dispensation is criminal and leaves the judiciary with blood on its hands. The decision to surrender to the appeal of this cold-blooded murderer is nothing but unforgivable. I urge you to do whatever is needed to reverse this travesty of justice." The letter goes on further, but I won't quote the whole thing. Meanwhile, Ian Broadhurst leaves behind a widow, his wife of, I can't find out how many years, Elisa.